Hi, welcome to another episode of Beyond Chronic Disease. My name's Wendy Gathercole. I'm your host. How'd you go with last week's episode, Escape the Debt Trap? Well, this week's a little bit sort of ties in with last week. Well, I'm going to make it tie in with it. So have you put any of those processes in place? If not, why not? If you're in debt, are you still in the same situation as what you were before you listened to the podcast? Okay, so this week I'm talking about problems because I don't view problems as problems. I view problems as processes. And once you reframe your wording and the way you look at a problem, a perceived problem, your mental attitude changes immensely. So this week we're going beyond the problems and we're going to embrace the process. So what we have to do is identify, reframe, and then solve. So we identify the perceived problem, we reframe our thinking and the steps involved, and then we solve it. It's simple, and that's it. It's all resolved. No more problem. No problem in the first place, really. So going back to last week, avoiding the debt trap, whatever I called it, I can't remember, sorry. But it's all about getting out of debt. So you identify, so going back to that, if you've just gotten to it, okay, so there's no problem, okay? You're in debt, that's it. It's not a problem, it's a process. So you identify what needs to happen. Okay, so I did some steps in there last week about looking at what you're spending your money on, living within your means, things like that. Don't buy stuff that you just don't really need, like stuff. That's what I call it when you don't really need it. It's just glitz and glamour. So that's the identifying part. And then the reframing part is just, that's it. It's a process. So what can I do to solve this? And then I've discussed like last week about different ways that you could limit or your debt, decrease your debt by looking at subscriptions and subscriptions and what you buy, what you spend your money on, and memberships and all of that sort of stuff. So you can look at that and then you aim to resolve it. So you identify, reframe, and solve. And that looks at what you need to do, what processes you need to go through, and then you resolve it. So look at problems, not as problems, but only as processes. So I'll give you a personal example, okay? So well, where do I start? There's lots of things. Okay, so I'll talk about this one. This was a real clincher. There was a couple of them that all happened all at once. A body corporate issue, and I just asked the question of the body corporate that was managing some property that I have. Body corporate issue, I asked a question and I didn't get a response. And it was a really simple question, like who's cutting the grass? Simple. I didn't get a response. There's no answer. And then I'm like, well, what's going on here? And I just pursued it a little bit. And then I did a little bit of research into this particular company. And this was after a couple of years of dealing with them, but not really dealing with them in depth. You know, it was pretty, there was only the AGM really. There wasn't much else that was happening until this particular question. And realizing that they weren't sort of cracked up to what they supposed to have been. So then it was a process. Well, it was a problem to start with. It was like, oh no, what am I going to do? So it's a process to work out what to do. So I had to identify the need. I needed to get another body corporate in place, a management system in place. So I identified it. And so that was the reframing of it, because otherwise I would have gone crazy trying to think about it as a problem. So I reframed my mindset, the whole situation as well. And then I took steps to contract another body corporate management. So this took a long time. This took quite a few months. And it was a process which, you know, I guess in doing this and other things that I've done like this in my life, so, you know, I've done event planning and, you know, been dealing with the event person for the first few months, and then had, you know, email to say, sorry, I've quit, you know, and then you've had to sort of start again. And so if everything like this that happens to you is a problem, then it will be a major problem. And then it grates, well, not grates, it embeds in your mind as a problem. And problems really have got a negative emotional factor to them, I guess. It's just all negative stuff. But when you say it's a process, it's just completely different. Just that word, there are no problems, there are only processes. So if anything, you take on that little sentence in your life, your mental health will improve. There are no problems, there are only processes. Even if you're in debt, after, you know, last week's episode about the debt, you know, there are no problems, only processes. So what needs to happen? What processes can you put in place to resolve that perceived problem? This is all I'm going to say about this today, because I say this all the time, and I live it all the time. It's just some of the things that I've done, like importing things from overseas into the Australian system here. I mean, honestly, it's a process. That's the only way that I can view it, to keep you laughing, because sometimes things that happen are just gobsmackingly dumb. That's as simple as I can say it. And it doesn't sound good, but that's true for me. So getting back to it, your problems are no longer, okay? They're processes. So I have no problems, I have processes. So view every perceived problem as a process, and it will increase your mental health immensely, especially if you are constantly in a state of problematic situations. And so again, there are no problems, there are only processes. So until next week, have some fun with that one. Let me know how you go, because there are no problems, there are only processes. So remember, identify your needs, identify what you need, reframe, find the process, and then solve the perceived problem so that it's resolved, and then you will be as happy as you will never ever have a problem ever again. I know that for a fact. So there are no problems, only processes. I'm saying it again, there are no problems, only processes. So, and again, see how you go with that, and I'll check you out next week and see how you went. Okay, bye.